Hi guys, welcome to Evening TV. I'm Evening Ransom, and I want to talk to you today about entitlement. A lot of us think about entitlement as really outrageous, that people think of, I'm entitled to have everything I want, and being really super spoiled. But I think entitlement actually is much more common than we like to think, and it's also, in my opinion, not, we were really hard on the millennials, talking about how it's the entitlement culture and that it's really to do with this younger generation. And my experience is that's not the case. I think that I have been really shocked at the entitlement of my parents, for instance. Their baby boomer generation. My baby boomer parents' entitlement, really outrageous, really outrageous, and always looking for ways that we can turn this situation that happened to us, and granted, really bad, and there were a lot of things that were really unfortunate, so many things that were unfortunate about what happened at being narcissistically abused as a child, and then going on to create more abuse until you figured it out, even in our adult lives. But one of the things that kind of helps to sort of balance the ledger a little bit is that we, by and large, did not grow up to feel entitled. And there's a real upside to that, because if you don't feel entitled to things, then you can feel grateful a lot. You can feel grateful when good things happen. Really a lot. And the downside is that before you figure out what's going on, is you can also be letting abuse happen and thinking that it's normal, and that just people being normal and kind to you is special and something to feel super grateful for. And so we didn't even feel necessarily entitled to having our basic needs met, didn't feel entitled to even exist a lot of the time. And so of course that's really bad. But once we get we get that figured out and we're no longer being abused, we really are set up to be really pretty happy people, because we're not lost in this entitlement thing. And being entitled is a way to be unhappy. It's a way to really be unhappy, because you can't ever feel grateful and excited about anything because you deserved it. You think you deserve it. And so, a place you can really see this happening is when people are out driving around in their cars, and the way that people are rude, and they're just, willing to cut people off and willing to, misbehave really badly, because they're thinking, well, I'm in a hurry, I got to get there. But everybody on the road is trying to get somewhere. Everybody, you're not any more entitled to getting where you're going than anybody else on the road, right? Entitlement, the definition I heard was that where we take our needs and our desires, and we think of them in terms of that we don't just need this, we don't just desire this or needs and wants. We actually deserve to have our needs and our desires met. And that is a really dangerous place to be, because it's sort of a passive position, for one, because it sounds like, it's just being, granted to you from on high somewhere, which is rarely the case. It makes it so that you can't ever feel really grateful for anything. And also, it's not a lot of fun to give anything to someone who feels entitled. Certain things that we are entitled to, but very few, really not very many at all. Certain things that we're entitled to, but because they're rights of being a citizen here in this country. So unless you give those rights up by becoming a felon and breaking the law, you're entitled to, all of our rights: bearing arms, freedom of speech. You're entitled to being treated with a certain level of basic decency and kindness, and things that we can be entitled to. But really, when you think about it, just very few things are we entitled to. And when you approach life that way, it really is sort of a refreshing way to look at it. And you think about this now. This is something that this will date me or whatever, but tell you a lot about my age. But when you think about it, and it can be easy to fall into an entitlement trap. It really can. We don't stay grateful for very long. And so it's really important to, and I really try to remind myself, I think about this, I think about where I live right now and the way I live, and I think about that 10 years ago, I was homeless. 10 years ago, I was literally homeless. And you know, when you go one direction, when you go up, that's one thing. But when you fall back down, I went straight from building my dream house, which wasn't as nice as this house, but it was, you know, the dream house that my husband and my first husband and I were building, and it was a house I designed, and it was, you know, you know, going to be the place where I raised my kids, and it was this whole thing, and went from that, many stumbles and falls, but you know, ended up basically from that to homeless. It's really important to make sure that we pay attention, because, you know, important to be grateful for things. Think about this, guys. Think about how much things have changed. When I was a kid, you know, this is so funny with my kids, is they you know, they're beside themselves if they have to use our home phone for anything. We have cell phones now, and I think about that. We never used to have cell phones. We had phones that were attached to cords, and even before, I remember my grandmother had a rotary phone. You know, we had to dial a rotary phone, and, you know, it was like you'd hate it if someone had zeros in their phone number, because like you had to do the whole thing. You know, I mean, just so many. I remember a television set where you had only a few channels, and they were only on television was only on, you know, basically till midnight or so, and then it went off, and you had just a few channels, and you had to actually get up and go over and turn the dial. I remember, you know, being a big deal when you got the remote control. I mean, granted, I lived in the country, and so there were modern conveniences that some of my friends had that I didn't have, because, you know, I didn't have cable and things like that. But I mean, you just to think about that, and we didn't think anything of it. We didn't think anything of it. And now you would just think that it was, you know, really we have come so far. I mean, I went all the way through college without a computer. Never even thought about a computer. You know, we typed. We had like a corrector ribbon, you know, correct. You know, and so a lot's changed. A lot has changed, and, you know, if it all disappeared, we would be fine. We would be able to be just totally fine. But try and remember, it's a key to a happy life. It's a key to a happy life to stay grateful and not feel entitled. Entitlement is a rocket ride to being unhappy. And you know, some of the places I have really been confronted with entitlement, and it is not a millennial thing. But you can tell a lot about entitled people about how they treat, like, service people, how they treat people that don't have anything to do for them. You know, do they feel entitled to special treatment? Do they feel entitled to bossy people around? They feel entitled to, you know, just you know, they feel better than people and entitled to just sort of letting them know that, and, you know, walking around with this sort of like superior sort of attitude. That's very, very unattractive and goes very much hand in hand with entitlement. And another way entitlement can come out is it can come out as being entitled to being taken care of. And this is a downside to someone who is a victim of narcissistic abuse. If you're the type of abuse victim that had maybe the very, very overly enmeshed mother, and didn't let you do a lot of things for yourself, and they took care of things for you as a means of control, the outcome of that a lot of times can be that a person expects to be taken care of, and can be very dependent and needy and quite a drain, an emotional vampire on people. And so that's something that definitely, if you have that kind of a mother, to watch for in yourself, to make sure that you're not doing that. But the entitlement culture, I'm not going to blame it on millennials. I don't think, I mean, certainly they are guilty of it, but I don't believe that they're any more guilty of it than a lot of us have become. It's a widespread. I don't think it can be done. I don't think you can dictate it by age, focused by necessarily even by how much money you have. Someone who has worked hard for what they have and they appreciate it, that, of course, is going to be someone who doesn't have entitlement. And I have seen really appreciative people that are really, really wealthy. And I've seen spoiled people that are not, son's friends, perhaps. You can't judge it all by that. Who's going to come and be polite? Who's going to come and treat our property and our home and stuff with respect, and who's not? You know, there's no hard and fast rule about who's doing that, but it's really an important quality for your own happiness to not be entitled. And to not teach your kids to be entitled adults, because it's just, if all we want is we want happy kids, we don't want entitled kids, that's for sure. All right, you guys, I'm getting in the dark here, so I better go in. Thanks a lot. Please write some comments below, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. Thanks a lot. I'll talk with you later. Bye-bye.